Chances are Vulcanus will be your first port of call when breaking into space exploration. It's by far the most attractive planet as it allows you to unlock much more powerful metallurgical tools like advanced mining drills and foundries alongside artillery and cliff explosives. If you don't know what you're getting into, traveling to a new planet can be extremely confusing, but making sure you go prepared will make things much easier. So today, I'm here to go through everything you need to know when making your first trip to Vulcanus. Or Vulcanus, I don't know. The first thing you need to know is fortify your platform. If you're considering going to Vulcanus, then you've already built your first space platform for space research. In doing this, you'll have no doubt seen the various asteroid fragments floating around space that can be collected for various resource usage. When traveling to other planets, much larger asteroids will be in your path, and if they make contact, they can damage and even destroy your platform if you aren't careful. You want to place a number of turrets all around your platform, with the bulk of them being on the front to clear out anything that gets in your way. Not only will this protect your platform from damage, it'll also break them into small chunks which can then be grabbed and processed. Alongside turrets, you can also use walls to give yourself a small buffer should an asteroid make it through your defenses. It's not much, but it's better than nothing and also fairly low cost. These turrets will also need plenty of ammo, so I'd suggest an ammo setup similar to this which maximizes crafting speed so you're never caught out. It may take a little longer to be built, but it's well worth it for the peace of mind when traveling through space. If you want to use my blueprint, which I found to be fairly reliable between Vulcanus and Novis, I'll drop it in the description below. I also run my ammo through the main platform hub, as this allows me to stockpile a couple of stacks of ammo, so I'm ready for anything even if my assemblers can't keep up. Alongside turrets, you'll also need to keep the platform powered, and that means fuel and electricity. For my platform, I found about 44 solar panels can handle the maximum possible consumption, but your mileage may vary depending on what you're building. Now yes, they take up a lot of space, but they get the job done and they are very low maintenance. You can use capacitors, but these want to be used as an emergency backup rather than something to be relied upon regularly. Next up, rocket fuel. I'd start with just a single thruster since it won't really take that much time to get back and forth with Vulcanus. For this, you'll need to provide a steady supply of thruster fuel and oxidizer. Both of these can be easily crafted on platform using asteroid pieces, and I'd advise building fluid tanks for both just to give yourself some buffer. With one thruster, tier 1 speed modules on everything are plenty to keep things fueled up. If you do run out of fuel, you'll simply slow down until you find more resources, so it's not the end of the world, but of course not ideal. Speaking of platform resources, I'd advise setting filters for each of your asteroid collectors. Now sure, they might miss out on some resources here and there, but A, they're essentially infinite anyway, and 2, if you don't set a filter, they can fill up with one kind, leaving you out of luck if you need another. Okay, now the platform is ready to go, you need to make sure you pack everything you need for the trip. You're not allowed anything in your inventory when you head to the platform aside from armor and weapons, so everything else you'll need to send up ahead of you. For Vulcanus, I'd advise sending plenty of solar panels and capacitors to handle all of your power needs. It has frequent day and night cycles and a 300% bonus to solar panel production, so this is by far the best solution to power your base. You'll also want to bring along some mining drills. Not only will coal be available here, but also calcite, a new resource that can come in very useful a little bit later. You'll want electric furnaces to smelt your first few bits of iron, copper and steel, pump jacks to harvest sulfuric acid deposits. This can be extremely useful for creating various oil products alongside water, chemical plants for doing all of that work, assemblers to craft some advanced items, and of course a few stacks of belts, splitters, underground belts, and your various power poles and inserters. Honestly, you can't exactly over-prepare, so it's better to take too much and not need it than too little and then be sat around waiting for a resupply drop. That reminds me, bring along a cargo landing pad. Without it, all of your resources will just land in a loose area, which is technically fine, but not all that useful or organized later on. I'd also suggest sending over some roboports and a stack of each type of robot. Whilst you can get away without using them if you like, they'll make everything much easier, especially once you leave, and will be needed to take care of things whilst you're not there. So once you've made your trip across, you can simply drop to the planet from the menu on the right of the screen, and once you land, head back to the platform menu and manually drop off all your items either into your cargo pad by dropping and placing it first, or just randomly on the ground if you don't mind picking everything up. Honestly, at this point, I was pretty overwhelmed since it felt like starting all over again, and that's really because it was. I said this to my partner, and it is the most insanely obvious and dumb sounding thing, but it turns out a whole new planet is a whole new planet, so just treat it like the early game. Your objective is to progress through the tech tree, and to do that you need to mine calcite and a big volcanic rock. These rocks are the only way you'll be able to collect tungsten ore early on, and whilst you can collect them manually, it will be much easier with bots, hence why I said to bring some. Set up a small mining operation on a calcite deposit, and for now, build it to the best open area you can find. Obviously, this will vary from game to game, but all Vulcanus maps will share the same 3 biomes. The ashlands are the most open areas and are normally covered in coal deposits and various vegetation and rocks. Lava basins are areas filled with lots of winding lava rivers, which can make navigation and base building extremely challenging. They also contain deposits of tungsten ore, which will come in very useful later on. And lastly, mountains. Unsurprisingly, these are full of large rocks and cliffs, which also make base building and navigation into a nightmare. They're also where you'll find calcite and sulfuric acid. So my best advice is to find a safe ashland zone to set up a small base and start routing resources there. Once you've collected both of these, you'll need to start creating tungsten carbide. This is made by combining carbon, tungsten ore and sulfuric acid in an assembler, and should be a relatively simple process to make, especially on the smaller scale, which is all you'll really be able to afford and need early on. Doing this will finally unlock the Foundry, which is when you're really off to the races. But by the time you're ready to make full use of Foundries and set up a much larger base, you're also more likely to need more space and find out what those red zones mean on the map. These are inhabited by Demolishers, which are essentially huge worms that defend their block of territory and must be taken out to open them up. These are fairly challenging as they have a huge HP pool and pretty much one-shot anything they get close to in combat thanks to their lava pool summoning and crippling slows. The best and cheapest way to take them out that I've found is with a turret block. This means you drop a blueprint of a bunch of turrets loaded with ammo and pray it gets built and loaded before the worms get there. To make one of these blueprints, place a turret or a ghost, press M and click on the turret and add some ammo to it using the menu on the left. Whilst you could fill them up completely, this means you will need a crazy amount of ammo using this method, and I found like 25 works just fine. Plus, doing this, you're just accepting you're going to lose around half your turrets, so you don't really want to throw ammo down the drain. Anyway, once this is done, you blueprint the turret and place it down to see if it's working by this little icon. And then place as many as you want. For a small worm, I found a 7x7 grid works really well, and then blueprint it and you're ready. Large worms will require more turrets and ammo, so just scale up accordingly as and when you need them. And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm talking about armor-piercing ammo here. These things have crazy HP and resistances. This does mean you will need to set up some sort of turret and ammo crafting on planet, but with a very basic setup, this should be no problem. The worms will detect and destroy anything in their territory, so don't worry about placing your block too close to them as they will find it eventually. Just make sure you have enough time to complete the build and you're golden. Before you do though, you can bait them out using cheap items like belts to destroy cliffs at the same time, but this is totally optional. All going to plan, they should get taken out, and once they are, their bodies will turn into a large boulder of tungsten ore, giving you a great way to farm some earlier on. Now you have a little bit more breathing room, you can get to work with Foundries, and these are where Vulcanus really gets going. Foundries allow you to start making use of lava on the planet and finally start getting some reliable resource income. By pumping lava and feeding calcite into your foundries, you can create molten iron and copper. This can then be used not only to create iron and copper plates, but also to directly make steel without a second smelt, iron gear wheels, pipes, and so much more. On top of all of this, foundries are scarily efficient, creating resources much faster and cheaper than regular assemblers, as well as producing bonus resources every 2 crafting cycles. There's honestly a whole video's worth of content that could be made about how foundries can be integrated into your factory for massive efficiency bonuses, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video. The bottom line to know is these are how you will do a lot of your crafting on Vulcanus. Crafting your first few can be done in an assembler, but you should replace this with a foundry as soon as possible to make the most of that efficiency. One of your first foundry crafting priorities after this should be the big mining drill. This will allow you to start mining tungsten ore and stop relying on rocks and demolisher carcasses for your tungsten. Obviously, if your tungsten ore is in a red zone, clear the area of worms where your patch is located and route that back to your base for processing. This will then be used to make tungsten oxide as mentioned earlier, as well as tungsten plates, so you'll need plenty. Once you've managed to craft your first tungsten plates, you'll unlock the ability to craft metallurgic science packs, and at this point, you'll want to start thinking about getting home. Doing this is the exact same process as getting to Vulcanus in the first place. You'll need to craft a rocket silo and a rocket and send yourself back to the platform and ride it home. This is obviously a lot easier said than done since silos and rockets require a massive number of advanced components, but you'll have done this once by now, so you don't need me to explain it to you. Alongside building all of this, I'd also advise setting up a small mall on the planet so it's self-sustaining and can expand without you having to send items back and forth. You don't need every single thing, but items you use regularly, like belts, inserters, assemblers, etc. will all be good ideas. Plus, you haven't got much else to do during this time, so you might as well keep busy. Roboports and eventually robots will also be a good idea, so you can expand your area of influence and remove worms without even needing to visit. Just the same as when you left Novice, you can't take anything with you, so you'll need to ditch your inventory, either in a storage chest so you can grab it when you land back, or by distributing it around the base where needed. Whilst you're getting ready, you should also start thinking about what you'd like to export from Vulcanus. The planet has a number of valuable resources that can only be found or crafted here, so you'll definitely want to bring some goodies back for use on Novice and eventually other planets. Obviously, the thing we came for in the first place, science packs, but beyond that, foundries and big mining drills can only be built on planets, so bringing a few back is a great idea since they'll be extremely useful in your main base. Artillery guns, ammo, and cliff explosives are also made using calcite and tungsten plates. However, their maximum amount per rocket is pretty low, so I'd actually suggest shipping back the materials needed to make them and then doing it at home. This will take up more storage slots on your space platform, so you will need to manage that size a little bit more, but it's much fewer rocket launchers, so it'll be a lot faster and more efficient of a trade route. Anything you decide to export, I'd advise placing some sort of provider chest as close to your launch silo as possible. Whilst you can manually feed items into rockets, by turning on automatic requests, you'll be able to dictate what gets passed around using requests and rules, which make things a lot tidier, so this is my preferred way of doing things to ensure a quick and smooth transfer. Speaking of requests and rules, setting up a platform as a transport ship can be a little bit confusing, so here's my best explanation. You want to set requests on a platform for all the items you want to send from the target planet, in this case Vulcanus. Make sure the import from has the right planet selected to make sure it's asking at the right stop. Then you can use the item count wait condition to make sure the platform has enough resources before it leaves. Request satisfied is to do with the cargo landing pad, so don't use this as it will not work like you might think. I'd stick everything on the more than or equal to the target amount to account for any odd numbers being transported when the platform isn't totally empty. I also set an item count for over 150 ammo just to make sure the platform is loaded up with plenty of ammo for the trip and won't get taken apart during. The destination planet, in this case Novus, you can set all requests satisfied, and as long as you set up your request in the cargo landing pad correctly, you should be sorted. Just add on that same ammo command for the peace of mind and it should be off to the races. I'd also make sure that you're doing something with the resources landing in your cargo pad as soon as possible, so it's not sat totally full all the time. But aside from that, this should all work perfectly and your transport will go back and forth automatically, ferrying over your resources. And that's everything I have for this guide to Vulcanus. Let me know any questions you have in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Factorio content, then check out this video on my tips for new players.